Hello and welcome to the Utah Hockey Podcast. My name is Kelly Queel. I'm here with my co-hosts, Mike Wolf and Cole Bagley. I had to point to them to make sure that you saw them, even though you can't see them in my camera. We're learning. We're on video now, so we're learning. We can't decide whether this is breaking the fourth wall to stare at the camera or if we're just on camera.
You guys wearing the same clothes as the last episode?
I'm sure that if you looked in my closet, it's like all black pants and then the exact
chances are good
same
you're
shirt.
going to be wearing that exact thing for every episode.
The hat for sure.
I own like 6 of these shirts.
Guys,
and
I
just
don't
can't-
wear stuff that's not Utah Hockey Club, so I'm like out of character right now.
Kelly just dresses like a teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is not even a cardigan. This is a shacket, so that's one step better because I do pull out the cardigans to be a teacher.
Yes.
Anyhow, we would love to talk about hockey now.
Yeah.
We missed 2 weeks in which a lot of stuff went down. The craziest being Captain Kells and the USA hockey team. What are your thoughts? Because I have something else to say.
So stoked about it. And I think what I'm hearing a lot online, because I posted about if it's anything to do with Utah Hockey Club, I'm on it. And especially just because Clayton Keller was the captain, and then we had Kesselring, Doan, and Cooley all on the team.
Yeah.
I was like extra invested in this IHF World Championship, especially because it may have been the last one of its kind, considering the World Championships is being taken over by the NHL.
Yeah.
So I was just I'm hearing a lot of it didn't matter, not all the greatest players are playing.
Same.
What happened in Four Nations? Mostly hearing this from Canadians.
Yes.
Shocker.
Shut your mouth, Canadians.
Who didn't even play for a medal.
This mattered, and you guys
Seems
had
like you went out pretty quick, Canada.
It also feels like
Seemed
you
pretty
guys,
important to your nation because you stacked the roster.
Yeah, it feels like you guys had Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Marc-Andre Fleury,
Macklin
Macklin Celebrini, lots of other really talented players, and you lost to Norway. Does Norway even have a military? No, they're propped up by the U.S. military.
No.
So, I mean,
How vicious can they be?
pretty
They're
sure.
just betting that no one's going that far north to attack.
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
Joke's on them. There's ice there. They play
exactly.
there. The fjords.
Their defense is slipping and falling. And
I know. All credit to Norway. They actually had a really fun tournament.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of fun stories from the World Championship. Obviously, the biggest one being that the USA won for the first time in 90.
The three of us recorded.
Yes.
And I brought up the stat, which didn't seem important at the time, that USA had not won gold since 1933.
So what I'm learning is that going into this next season for the Mammoth, I need you to say how
stats.
long it's been
since
this organization's been in the playoffs. And
it has been a million days since we were in the playoffs.
And when we get into February, I need you to say how long it's been since the United States has won gold.
Yes. We got the Olympics coming up.
So get it on episode, because then it'll happen.
Okay, well, you got to record
keeps
that.
Continuing to happen. It's a
But
trend.
we got some bronze medals in the past. Canada was kind of dominating the IHF tournament in the past. It is kind of a funky tournament because when they're doing this during playoffs, you kind of have the situation that you are missing players. But for us to have seen the U.S. compete in Four Nations, and we played our full roster as far as I'm concerned with the players that we had. And then to see them, quote, not play our best players, whatever that means, into the IIHF championship, it was kind of like, well, these guys seem pretty good.
Yeah.
But since 1933 had not won a gold medal, it did seem kind of funky that Canada was in the opposite division. How do they divide them? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I know that I'm pretty sure they just divide it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just
Okay,
so
by
that 1
It's
and
more
2
even.
don't end up in
It
the
makes
same.
sense, yeah.
Yeah, because if you notice, I mean, Canada had Sweden in their side.
Yep.
And then we had, who did we? The Czech Republic. We had,
Swiss?
Czechia in ours.
Oh, yeah.
That was kind of the fourth.
Yeah, and
I think, the
Switzerland,
fourth
too.
best team.
Yeah.
So, and Switzerland, who ended up obviously having a really good tournament too.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think is hopefully going to change with the NHL taking over the World Championships is that the World Championships has become this like proving ground for more important tournaments like the Four Nations. We saw Olli Mata go and compete with Finland and then earn a spot and actually play quite well in Four Nations. And you saw it with a lot of different players, and it felt like that's kind of how they treated it this year, because Clayton Keller had an amazing tournament. Tate Johnson had an amazing tournament. And those two players really should have been on the
Biggest
Four Nations
snubs.
roster. The
Yes.
biggest snubs of the Four Nations.
Yes.
I said this then.
We ranted about it for months.
There was no reason for those two players to not be on those rosters, and for guys like Chris Kreider and Vincent Trocheck to
Pretty much
be
any
on the
Ranger that was on the roster.
roster.
Yeah.
Exactly. Take the Rangers off the roster.
Just because they wear red, white, and blue doesn't mean.
They're like, they could look good in this similar
Yeah.
colors.
Yeah.
Aren't they on the team already?
So I feel like it was a proving ground, and it does play into their favor that the Olympic roster is 2 spots bigger. So there's really no reason for both of those players not to make it, and then for there potentially to be space for a guy like Logan Cooley,
Who led the Americans in points.
who led the Americans with points with Frank
12.
Nazar.
Yeah.
So
4 goals,
One of the
8
cool
assists.
things that a lot of personalities have been discussing too is that because it wasn't an Olympic level, in quotations, team, all of these players were so young that they have seen best on best tournaments recently with these juniors tournaments
and won them recently.
Our own Dylan Gunther got his golden goal, right, in his juniors tournament. And so I do think it kind of made a difference reflecting on like them being young enough to have done a similar style tournaments in the past and be able to push through to this one as well. It's cool.
Well, and to be as effective as they were, we talked about it already. Cooley, 4 goals, 8 assists, tied for the first most points of any American. Keller was, I think, tied for third or maybe single in third with 10 or 11 points. Kesselring was solid on the blue line. Josh Stone played important minutes. He didn't play every game, and he didn't play as many minutes as most, but he played important minutes and scored a goal, which was really cool to see. So for the Mammoth, both individually and I think as a team, there's a lot to be excited about with the result of this.
Totally.
To see a guy like Keller, who captains the Mammoth, get snubbed and then put the C on his chest for his country and win a gold medal.
And also during the season go off against the guy who snubbed him in Minnesota every single game. And then to go to the World Championship and prove it. Like he proved it during the season, then he reproved it at the World Championship.
I have a hot take. It's not a hot take for Mammoth fans.
Here comes the
But
first
it's a hot
take.
take, I think, for NHL
the first
fans.
hot take of the
probably-
Utah podcast on KSL.
Probably Leafs fans. Clayton Keller's a better captain than Austin Matthews. Like I said, I know. It's not a hot take for Mammoth fans.
I don't think it is. And I think for a lot of people, they might be like, well, maybe not Clayton Keller, but my captain. Like, I feel like Wings fans would be like, but Dylan Larkin would be.
Sure.
But I agree. I 100% agree with that. I don't think that Austin Matthews.
I don't want to see him with a C on his chest at the Olympics
No way.
at all.
There's no way. Give
He's
it
a
to
good
one of the
player.
Tkachuk brothers.
Not a leader.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think like
Clayton Keller, actually.
I just did like a session listening to Rick Bowness kind of talk about his coaching career. And one of the things that he said is that you have captains on a team, and then you also kind of have these people that play roles as silent captains on a team. I do feel like Clayton Keller embodies captain, because I don't know at all. I've never met the guy. I know that Clayton Keller watches tape incessantly. I know that Clayton Keller is reading up on other people incessantly. Like, I just know
Well, have you
that
guys
he's
heard-
the most reputable person to trust on that
Do you
team.
remember that story that Coach Bear talked about? What it was towards the beginning of the season. It had taken place when they were in New York, I believe, on that first road trip.
Yeah.
And we asked the question after all of this of like, hey, how's Keller doing as captain? And Bear was like, well, let me share a story, about that. So when they were in New York, they went to dinner, and everybody's just kind of chatting and having a good time. Sergev and Keller are watching highlights in NHL games, while everybody else is, whatever.
Yeah,
But that just shows you how competitive,
totally.
and how engaged and how aware that both Keller and Sergev are trying to be of the teams that they're playing, of what's going on around them in the league, so that they can be the best competitors, so that they can put their best game on the ice and know how to beat teams. And there was some concern when Keller was awarded the C for the Mammoth that, they're just making the best overall player their captain. And no, that's not true. I really believe that, yes, Keller is the best player on the team.
Yeah.
But I also believe he's the best fit for the captain. Having interacted with him, talked with him, he is so insanely competitive.
Right.
And that's what you want. I think, in a captain. And there's a lot of different ways that you can captain a team, but I think Keller has been perfect for the Mammoth. I think he was perfect for Team USA at the World Championships because, he understood what the mission was.
Yeah.
And he went out and he did it. Whereas, a guy like Matthews, I think more so fits that mold of, well, he's just the best player on the team, so put the C on his sweater.
Yeah.
The best scorer on the team. And I feel like that's where a lot of people mix up. Like, oh, I want this person to be the captain, but is that person a captain or is that person
Yeah, there is
just
like a
the best
leadership.
scorer?
Yeah, there's a leadership quality that you just absolutely have to have. And
Yeah.
we're biased, but he has it. For sure.
Yeah.
So
I'm happy
how-
to admit that I'm biased. That's fine.
So where were you when USA won gold? Because I have a story. I went to Bear Lake that weekend and I was watching IHF games on the beach in Bear Lake. And I am not kidding you guys when I tell you, I saved this for the podcast, by the way, and haven't told you this yet, but I have a video.
More things to learn.
As I was watching the USA game, the semifinal game, so the day before our finals, a bald eagle flew over my head on the beach in Bear Lake. And I swear to you, it was like I was watching this on my phone and go,
that was the blessing.
I was like, are we going to win?
That is amazing.
And then guess what? We won.
Wow.
For even us to be able to go to the finals is like, hasn't happened in so long, because for us to have silver hasn't happened in so long. So for us to be qualified enough to get to that final game, play for gold and win gold, such a beautiful thing.
That was just free
I'd like to
bird.
thank you, Bald Eagle. Free bird. Get it? Free
did
bird.
you shed a tear?
Honestly, close. But my children were throwing sand.
Very
so I had
patriotic
to
moment.
focus
for
back
you.
in. Yeah, it was.
He was making his way over to Europe to
I
go,
think so.
Bless the team.
Little
with
symbolism.
destiny.
even this quote from Clayton Keller. This is the day after. This is the right after the Sweden game in the semis. He said, "Enjoy this for a couple more minutes and then move on. We've got a job to do tomorrow, and that's why you play. That's why you come here." So I feel
power.
like Clayton Keller does embody, like, he is not the always. It feels like he might not always be the loudest voice in the room,
For sure.
but he'll speak up when it matters, and so his words mean more.
And he has become a lot more outspoken. And that was, I think, kind of an emphasis this year.
Yeah.
Is because he was kind of not the silent leader of the team in Arizona, but he definitely just led more by action than by word. And now he's bringing, I think, more of that voice.
And it felt like maybe the organization in Arizona didn't always give him the opportunity to, like, the fact that he wasn't wearing a C on their last, they still didn't have a captain on their last game. Like, dude, it's the last game. We all know who the captain should be. And I think it's pretty evident that the players all knew who the captain should be. And he still wasn't wearing a C. So I feel like his actions definitely speak louder than his words, but he definitely has had a lot more words to say over the last season as it's gone on.
Well, in the transition from Arizona, there's stories that I've been told that he really kind of became the captain as the transition took place.
Yeah.
Just as all the rumors started circulating, the announcements started circulating, he was the one to step up and to make comments on it, to talk about it. And, I think that's really when the front office and the organization, obviously ownership changed, but, there was a lot of members that carried over.
Yeah.
I think that's when they realized, okay, Keller's got it. He's our guy and he's going to wear the C. And I think he did a phenomenal job for the Mammoth. And again, just for Team USA, like something that hadn't happened in almost 100 years. And that guy puts the C on his chest and he goes and he does it.
It was so cool. And to have four of them, to have all four of them there, it was just super meaningful to me personally.
This
and
might
also
be a
the
question we
organization.
ask somebody in the future who can actually put eyes on the situation, but I would wonder how much just being able to watch how Ryan Smith handled the transition played an example for Clayton Keller. In, like, Ryan Smith's a super young guy for how much money he has and how much influence he has, but he's very outspoken. He is the face of everything he does, and he'll put his stamp on pretty much everything because he's not afraid to be like, yeah, this is me. I guess a certain amount of money probably does that to you, but, like, he is a very good example of a young leader who has learned to just be the face of everything.
Right.
And I would wonder how much being able to kind of watch that play out, especially with something as tied into the hockey team as owning the hockey team, and something as public as owning a hockey team, as public as he's made it. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but not all owners are like that.
Even just for him to be at the games, glass level, watching them, we pump up Brian Smith a lot because
almost no owners are like that too.
Yeah.
They're just
in the locker room, chatting with them, asking them how they're doing. It's meaningful. I think we're spoiled, and we know that because we have watched the NHL long enough to know that, but it's fun to be spoiled.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, but fly high, Freebird.
We'll see you in February.
Yeah. Yep, we will see you in February, and I'm absolutely stoked that there's NHL involved Olympics.
Yes.
Give me more best on best.
Does it stress anybody else out that because our 4 guys did really well, that they might be on the Olympic team, and then our guys are going to be really tired?
Everyone's guys are going to be really tired. I think.
Okay, good.
I think we saw it in the 4 Nations. Even though there were some injuries that sidelined some guys, there was only one of those injuries who got injured that was like, I regret doing that, and that was Charlie McAvoy.
And I can't blame him.
Yeah, and I can't blame. Yeah, if you lose your season because you went and played in a tournament that technically doesn't have any like official benefit for you, that's really tough. At the same time, Matthew Tkachuk got injured, and he was like, "Yeah,
it is what it is.
I got injured.
Now he's back playing.
I was playing balls out. I got it. That happens,
which is awesome.
It's
that's
awesome.
what made that tournament so great.
I know. That's what we want.
I wish fighting was allowed in the Olympics.
Oh man,
dude, I just want to see Brady Tkachuk go again.
So that opening of the
glove
Canada
drop
game, just the 3 glove drops in the first.
The amount of text messages that I got that day that were just, "Are you watching this?" I think I got like 6 that said, "Are you watching this?"
The brotherly patriotism. God bless the Tkachuks.
I think you sent it to me the other day when I was like, "Yeah, I'm coming to drop in," and you sent me that
gif of them dabbing
each other up when they're going to the penalty box. Oh man, gets me hyped up.
The feels.
Sign up for the military just because of that moment.
I know. Yeah, super excited about the Olympics this off season for us, but in season for a couple of teams still. I don't think we've talked about we haven't posted an episode since the last series started.
Yeah.
Super exciting. We were talking before we came in here about who we want to win the Stanley Cup.
So now it's down to the Oilers and the Panthers. What are your thoughts, Cole?
Yeah, I think just...
Did we call him Cole? That felt weird. Bags?
Just briefly, it's the 2 best teams in hockey, and I think it was pretty obvious through most of the playoffs that this was going to be the final. There were some moments of adversity for both, but they're just playing the brand of hockey that nobody else can really keep up with, and it's 2 very different styles, right? It's bully in your face, do whatever it takes, just pest type hocky from the Panthers.
Hockey, that's exactly it.
And
rat type hockey.
Just rat hockey. Just ask Brad Marchand. And then the Oilers, it's just pure brilliance from McDavid and Draisaitl.
Mm-hmm.
And they've obviously got a really good supporting cast, and they're getting good goaltending. So,
but even just the 2 of them maneuvering down the ice, it's just been like unreal, and they've just been able to dunk on the Stars quite a bit in the last series.
I mean, they made Dallas look like they didn't even belong in the playoffs.
Yeah,
which Dallas looked really good until this, but it just shows how much better those 2 teams are, and it should be an exciting final. I think it could go either way. Personally, I don't think that McDavid's going to lose 2 cups in a row. But Florida's good enough that they could win 2 cups in a row.
Yeah, it's 2 trains of thoughts of like, can anybody beat Florida? With the way that they play playoff friendly hockey.
Mm-hmm.
And so during the season, you might get some consequences of that. But during the playoffs, if you're playing playoff hockey out here, eventually it becomes really hard to beat in the playoffs. And I think that's where Florida finds themselves right now. They're just big and nasty, and
then to have acquired Marchand, and he's scoring goals and in people's faces, and they've whole
got
puck
arguably
shooting.
3 of the, I don't want to say dirtiest players, but I will say that. I did want to say it, I just wasn't sure if I was supposed to, but
I'll allow it.
Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett, and Matthew Tkachuk are 3 of the hardest players to play against in the league. And then you throw in like Aaron Ekblad, get just hard players.
And everybody on that team is embracing that style.
Yeah.
So it's just like stick jabs, and pushes in the crease.
Cross checks every 5. If you turn your back to them, you're getting cross checked 900 times in the back.
I think my favorite moment of the playoffs was Tkachuk from the bench telling Nylander he was coming after him.
Yes, they're just
That is
shouting
so
at each
amazing.
other.
I love that.
Yeah, me too.
And people don't like the Tkachuks. They don't like Matthew Tkachuk. They don't like the Panthers. I love to watch that style of hockey.
Yeah.
Because that's what
What
wins.
is it after all? Entertainment.
I mean, yeah. Well, and obviously you love to watch the brilliance of McDavid flying down the ice, weaving through 5
He's
defensemen
fast.
and scoring on the backhand. But I just love the bully style of hockey, and that's what I think Utah's trying to get more into.
It shows that drop in, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Cole's a bully.
Yeah. Led the high school hockey association my junior year in penalty minutes.
Okay, pretty good.
That's not
My dad did not like that. He's like, why am I even coming to these games?
Sorry, Papa Bags. Did he sit by the penalty box instead of by the bench?
He really should have started doing that. 'Cause then
Hand
we
you
could at least
snacks over the
chat,
top.
Chatter chewed you out for. He's like, I'm paying for all this hockey gear.
Yep.
And you're spend all the
And
time
you're
on
sitting?
your butt. Yep.
Yep. Not even bench.
Do some push-ups while you're in there.
Get ready for the next one.
Yeah. But
That's funny.
like I said, I think the league is noticing what's working. I think Utah, it made it very obvious this last season, they need size.
Yeah.
And they need more scoring up
Very
front.
much.
And that,
Yes.
And
Yeah.
a little bit more of that bully behavior.
Yeah.
Just getting in people's business.
yeah. And I don't mean to transition away from it, but I think it's kind of an easy transition of, they're very clearly trying to get bigger and stronger.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they're adding guys like Boat and Simichev, KHL players, which is one of the most brutal leagues to play in the world. And Simichev 6'5", Boat's 6'7", and I think then you look at the draft. There's a lot of size. There's a lot of power forwards in this draft that are going to be available, and I think Utah's going to have their eyes on. Then you look at free agency. They need size and scoring.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think Utah is taking away from what we're seeing in the finals and what we're seeing in the playoffs is you got to be a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger and score more goals.
And what's cool about that is those two just having won championship. Both, right?
Yeah, the same team, teammates.
Yeah, same team. And then Sergy
Locomotive.
was out there not only watching,
Cheering
but
them on.
like hanging out with them also, which is awesome. So a little bit of that camaraderie coming full circle with the Russians.
Yeah.
And being able to come here kind of similar to what we just talked about with IHF, that they are coming off that tournament mentality, that like strength mentality, having a teammate already on your team and having sizable dudes who can score goals is awesome.
Yep.
That's what we want. We want to see it.
Yep. When you talk about the size that we just signed just over this last week, Dmitry Simichev, 6'5", 203, defenseman. Gabe Smith, 18 years old, center, 6'5", 207. Daniil Boot, 20 years old, left wing, 6'6", 216. So we and that's not even talking about the goalies that we drafted over the last couple of years, or that the Coyotes drafted, and then what we drafted last season. Like we were trying to get bigger. I think the organization clearly saw, all right, we've got Keller, Cooley, Gunther. These are smaller guys.
Barrett Hayton.
Yeah, Barrett Hayton. Even guys like Sean Dursey, and like not the biggest players, but can move the puck really well, which is valuable.
You're adding an average of like 6'5" over the last week and a half.
We just became a forest
Yeah.
over here.
No, it's good.
It's great.
It's great, especially if these players pan out. But I'm thinking that we'll see some NHL action out of a couple of these guys over the next season. What are you thinking, Cole, from your perspective as someone who's closer to the team? Who are you thinking we're gonna see in lineups this season?
Yeah, we're gonna see Boat and Simichev for sure.
Yeah.
You don't bring guys over from the KHL and not play them. It's just not how it works. Now, if they do need some time in AHL, they have that ability to put them down there for the next 18 months. But then there's a European clause that kicks in after that, where if they are not getting the time that they want here, they can go back to Europe and continue their development, and things move on from there. But these are two really good players. Boot is a mammoth. He is absolutely enormous.
Nice.
He attacks.
He's been waiting. He's out on that one for a while.
He attacks the net.
Cole's
very
so
strong.
right
If you ask Armstrong, Boat plays a North American style of hockey. He's just relentless and fearless in the way that he goes at the net. He he battles in the crease, he sets good screens, and he's also very creative. He had quite a few assists. He can score, and so I think I'm more excited about him than I am about Simichev. Now, Simichev, there's no reason not to be excited about him as well. I mean, Utah fans have come to realize how awesome it is to have a very good Russian defenseman on your blue line, and now we're getting another one.
Wow, we love that guy.
So,
I can only imagine Sergachev is also there like Utah's great because he has been such an advocate for Utah. A lot of free agents like looking towards Utah are looking at him quoting like, this place is my home. I could be here after I retire. Like those
and
are
he was just hanging out with Simichev.
Yeah, they were just together. So you can only imagine they're talking it up.
Right. So what I've been told is that Simichev is probably a little bit more NHL ready. Just based on like where he excels is skating. And that's unusual for a big giant defenseman.
Yep.
So that's why he's a little bit more ready. When guys come over from the KHL and they come over from Europe, it's the speed that they have to kind of adjust to. And I think that's what's going to make it a little bit more difficult for Boot is he's a big guy. Not that his skating's bad, but it's going to just take him a little bit of time to adjust to figure that out. Whereas I think Simichev's a little bit more ready. So I expect minutes from both. I think if we're going to see one sooner than the other, probably Simichev. Maybe one or both could use some time in the AHL. If so, think along the lines of Dylan Guenther, Josh Doan, where it's maybe 20, 30 games down there.
Yeah.
They get their bearings and then they're back up in the league. But yeah, I expect
that's
the
way
guys.
the system is built, right? To be able to throw them down in development and work a little bit and come back.
But it's very exciting.
Pace is really important when you think about players coming over from leagues like the KHL, even if they're coming over from, I think especially if they're coming over from like mainland Europe, you don't see a lot of players be able to come over here and immediately translate to the pace. So yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing some of these players get AHL minutes. And what we've driven home since the conception of the Utah Hockey Podcast is that you just need to be patient if you're a hockey fan, especially when it comes to development of players. It's all right if they go play in the AHL for a little bit. I know we want to see all of them in the NHL immediately, but that's really, when you talk about players who are NHL ready, it's sometimes not even the first overall pick. Sometimes they even need a year or two to develop. So just be patient.
People were saying that about Tej Ginla last year, like just bring them, because it's so cool to have a legacy NHL player, come up with us. But it just takes some time.
Yep.
Yeah. You're not alone in that feeling of wanting to see them play in the NHL right now. But, I feel like hockey fans just need to – because it's not like the NBA where Utah fans are used to NBA-style development where it's – if you're drafted in the first
15 to 20 picks.
15 to 20 picks, they want you to play that season. They want you to be ready. You're not going to play in the G League for a year.
If you're top 10, top 5, you're probably at least a rotation player that first year.
Yes, at least a rotation if you're top 3 you're playing.
Right.
And it's not necessarily like that in the NHL. So just be a little bit more patient. It's a sport that is really reliant on body development. Sometimes the skill is there and the size just isn't.
What
and
a
they gotta put on
cool
some pounds and they've got to grow. Like I think the male body's still growing until you're like 25. Like,
yeah, I mean,
is it ever really
these guys are
done?
These guys
not
are
mentally, just physically.
These guys are children for the most part when they're getting drafted.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Like Tej and Baudouin were like very young 17-year-olds when they're drafted in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
Like, if you think a 17-year-old is ready to go up against a 23, 24, 25-year-old that's probably got 30, 40 pounds and 5, 6, 7 years of experience on them, that's not the case.
And one of the things that we saw early on, especially in the Utah Hockey Club's inaugural season, is some of these guys just need to hone their own personal game. They also need to interact with the team, sure, but sometimes that personal game early on in their careers can look like a lot of penalties, can look like a lot of moves that
giving up the puck.
Giving up the puck a little bit easier, losing it in the neutral zone.
They're in their heads.
It's
not as naturally.
Thinking about it a lot, and you just kind of get better at your focus moving into play with the big guys.
Exactly. I'm really excited to look at the size of this team over the next couple years because I think it's going to start getting a lot bigger. And when you look at a player like Logan Cooley, 20 years old,
21.
21 now.
Yeah, you can't say that anymore.
Yeah. I really liked it when I was just like, really? You're going to get beat by a 20-year-old?
I know, 21 feels so much older.
I know. Or even like at the end of last season when I was looking at highlights, I was like, he's only 19. now he's
only 21.
Grown up right in front of our eyes. Yeah, he's only 21. But when you are a smaller player, sometimes that development of the league happens a little faster because you're going to play a smaller game.
Yeah.
But what I like about Cooley is that he despite his size, I think he plays a little bigger.
He's throwing some
solid.
elbows and stuff.
Yeah. No, he's a thick kid.
Yeah. He's got a great full ice game that I don't think you see super often.
Like
even with Gunther, who is a very offensive minded player, maybe his back check isn't as strong as a guy like Logan Cooley. So yeah. And I think Gunther's a little lighter.
Yeah.
Maybe a little less thick, but he plays his role and does it really well. So not a knock on Dylan Gunther. You need players who are offensive-minded offenders.
Mm-hmm.
So totally okay.
Can we talk about the PWHL before we get into the draft?
Yeah. Tell us.
Okay, guys. We have our only player in the PWHL who is living in Utah for the summers. We interviewed her in the fall. Her name is Melissa Channel Watkins. She's been living in Park City, won the PWHL in its inaugural season last year with the Minnesota Frost, and last week just won back-to-back championships to earn her second ring. They got rings. And she is driving home to Utah right now. How cool is that to just have another
awesome.
Like Utah representing, female hockey player representing, not from here, very Canadian, but her dad was an NHL scout. So it's cool to have like some legacy in the NHL and have 2 rings. So now the PWHL is completely restructuring. They got 2 new teams in Seattle and Vancouver, and they were able to lock 3 players in each of their teams, and now they're all kind of getting reshuffled until they all get up to 12 players, and then they'll start their draft.
Yeah.
Kind of a wild thing to see. Like, I reflect on how the NHL started with 6 teams. This is like that beginning, like structuring from the beginning, that they're now having to take, like, some people didn't save their captain, and you're taking captains that were on other teams to be able maybe to pump them up in the new Seattle Vancouver teams. I'm super excited that we get some teams closer to us, and to see some of the ladies competing is awesome, and we'll see them during the Olympics as well when we see our dudes. It's
06
so cool.
PWHL franchises.
Yes.
So now you get to, I guess that's relevant.
I guess
in
the Vancouver Seattle teams are going to just wear the
really?
name against,
They're gonna start them with nothing again.
Yes.
I kind of like that.
I know.
I think it should just become a thing because Utah adopted it in the NHL, and that was weird for a lot of, but you even see it in the NFL. You saw it with the Washington football team.
Right. Just be
that
nameless
seemed a
for
little
a
ridiculous
sec.
at the same time, and then it happened to us, and I was like, that's fine, that's normal. I wasn't
busy.
making fun of it.
We were like, they're busy. They need to think about a name for
the
a
thing
second.
with Washington is that they didn't relocate. They were just like, oh crap, we need to get rid of this. We need to get rid of this name. And yeah, it seemed like they had less of an excuse to not be ready for it.
Yeah, you could have thought about it
I also
before
feel
you
like
decided.
Commanders was terrible.
Yeah.
Commanders is a horrible name.
Horrid.
Yeah.
Absolutely awful.
This is like, we love hockey so much that it doesn't even matter what the other leagues are doing. We just hate them.
I feel like,
if
I'm
you have
probably a rare
issues-
example on this panel of icons.
Of icons.
On this panel where I actually really, really, really love almost every sport.
Yeah.
But specifically like for my team, but like I really love college football, and
Yeah.
I have like my teams that I watch and everything. So I kind of care, but hockey's taken over my life. So.
Yeah.
I think, if you're upset with Mammoth, just consider this. You could be
The Commanders.
the Commanders, or you could be the Guardians in Cleveland as well. Could
Yeah.
be so much worse.
What would be
It
the
could be way
equivalent
worse.
of a Utah version of the Commanders of the
The
Guardians?
Templars.
The Saints.
Ooh.
The hockey club at Temple Square.
The Utah Hockey Club at Temple
The Utah
Square.
Hockey Club at Temple Square.
The Mountaineers. The
The
Outlaws.
Disciples.
The Outlaws. There's still some Outlaw stands that are so grumpy.
There are Outlaw fans who are really stoked on Outlaws still.
In case you're new to the
Bummer.
Utah Hockey Podcast, we were all quickly on board the Mammoth.
Yeah.
Loved the trunk.
Yep.
In on the trunk.
What? You can't say that. Edit that out. I love a trunk.
Mammoths have trunks.
Is that what that means? Or
Tusks up.
Oh.
Tuss up.
Not doing that.
Tuss up.
Worst thing I've ever seen.
Tusks
Yeah. How do you
up.
feel about the hand motions that are being the Pat
This is the first time I'm hearing
the Pat
you
McAfee,
hate
I
it.
guess that
I hate
is
it.
being.
Why? This is the correct thing to do. This is sign language for Mammoth. Come on.
I don't want that.
Cole's like, I'm not doing
Immature
that.
little.
I think it looks ridiculous.
It does look ridiculous. Tuss up is ridiculous. It's all ridiculous. We're
Cole, why do you
cheering
care?
for.
You can't even celebrate on press row anyway.
I know.
So true. Why do we care?
I don't want to look around and see 20,000 people doing this.
Why? It's gonna happen.
That's fair. I'm not.
Why do we need like a
biggest
hand
fan of
gesture?
it.
I love that people were arguing it. First thing, they were like, "What is the hand gesture?"
I mean,
Happened
we
need
so
one.
fast.
I feel like I kind of played into those arguments
too.
So
Me
my
too.
bad.
A lot.
I feel
My
like
bad.
people think we need one because you have Utah and BYU that have the hand gesture.
Yeah.
Yes.
The
so
Y and
true.
the U. We don't need one in hockey. It's not a thing. Who
My-
else does that in the NHL?
I don't know what we're
No
going to
one?
now.
No,
we're
but-
being videotaped, so now people
Yeah.
can see us be absolute
We also,
psychopaths.
we also have to understand that Utah is mainly used to
Our fandom's
you could
weird.
say underperforming NBA franchise
Yeah.
and
Careful.
and then college football
Yeah.
and college basketball.
Yeah,
for-
that's what we
for
know.
One of these places because college basketball is a little bit more popular in Utah County than it is in Salt Lake County. So I feel like it's a very collegiate fan base, pretty much all along the Wasatch Front, that wants to impose collegiate
That's
traditions.
a good way. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
into the sport. And I actually don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I feel like you got to draw a line somewhere.
We should get a pet band. I just decided.
If we have a freaking pet band, I'm gonna lose it. I'll still be a fan. I'm not gonna be like.
What if the whole pet band is like
all right.
Tusks?
We digress.
All right, talk about the
Moving
draft.
on to the draft.
No, you even talk about Ryan Smith saying like, "Oh, it's kind of like Roll Tide." Like during the. Do you remember when he said
Yes.
that during? And I was like, "No, please."
I think Tusks Up is awesome.
I like Tuss Up.
I
You're
like it.
about Tuss Up, but not sign language for
does that.
Mammoth.
Nobody does that.
Everyone has a
I'm
hashtag.
gonna do this.
Everyone has a hashtag that, like, I think the league
Every team-
mandates that
yes.
you must have a short hashtag.
Like
Yeah.
Texas hockey and
yeah, LGRW.
Let's Go Pens.
Yep.
And like, yes,
Yeah.
all of those
Let's Go
things.
Pens probably not the greatest one. Like, probably just not a lot of creative people in the city of Pittsburgh. But let's move on to the draft.
What's even
I just
Detroit?
wait.
LGRW. Let's go Red Wings. It's very basic. Yeah.
That's way worse.
It's just the team that I grew up rooting for, so it's fine. They get a pass.
Listen, we love trunks around here.
Don't worry about
I heart trunks.
hand gestures.
Yeah.
Hockey
That's the
fans.
most important thing. I don't care about the draft as much as I care about the hand
I
gestures.
know that's the problem.
Kelly's like, I'm not budget. We're
All
not
right.
talking about the draft till we
Let's
figure
move
it out.
on to the draft. We'll finish with this because we're going long. There's some things I need to say.
Oh my.
I think
Why do I get... It was like a live
Gave me
tweet was
chills.
coming out of his body.
Her bags.
there's a lot. Look, I'm going to preface this. Anything can happen with this draft. This front office,
can
especially Bill
happen.
Armstrong, has made it clear that he's
GMBO.
willing to do whatever it takes to upgrade the team,
Love
make
that.
the team better.
Yeah.
Whether that means trades, whether that means drafts, whether that means free agency, he is going to make the moves that he feels the most confident are going to help this team win a championship. But I think there's a lot of national headlines right now that are like, oh, they're going to move the fourth pick. Let's maybe curb those for a second. Let's maybe slow those down.
Yeah.
There is possibility that they can move it. And Bill has said that, look, I'm going to get phone calls on this pick because people are going to want it. They will take those calls and they'll listen all day, but it would take a Sergachev type deal for them to even consider moving it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody,
I feel like you'd have to get some sort of really solid top six forward.
yes,
Somebody like there's this news around like JJ Peterka and Marco Rossi, like some young top six
Tage
forward that can come in
Thompson.
and score points for you. Yeah.
you guys got to realize
Yeah.
like a fourth pick is not going to get that done.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you
Not
see
gonna
what
get a
happened
Tage Thompson.
last year in the trade market? Like,
Right.
these assets are overvalued.
Right.
And maybe not even overvalued, maybe properly valued. It's hard to develop players.
Right.
Yeah.
And know that you're going to get somebody that's coming to make a difference. So.
Right.
It's hard to know what your return is.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, if they want one of those guys, first of all, someone's going to have to come to them and be like, hey, we'll give you this. But they're going to ask for more than the 4th pick. Yeah. You're looking at some of these, prospects in the pipeline. You're looking at more selections. You might be looking at somebody on the team that they want.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if I expect the pick to be made by Utah. Not saying that something can't change and that a trade can't happen, because it totally could and it wouldn't shock me. But I think as of right now, when you're looking at it, I would expect Utah to make the pick, because you need to consider, like you were kind of talking about, it is really hard to get centermen, power forwards, and top defensemen in the trade market and in free agency, because everybody wants them.
Yep.
But this draft is overflowing with center talent, with forward talent, and there's a couple really good defensemen.
Yeah.
And so if you have something that costs you absolutely nothing to go and get somebody that can turn out for you and help you, and Utah's also not in a rush. Not that they have all the time in the world, but they have more than I would say most organizations.
Yeah. We have such a young team.
Yeah, they're so young, and they're just starting to come into that competitive era.
Yeah.
They're not pushing for a Stanley Cup right now.
Mm-hmm.
No. They're not.
Even though Mike and I are, but continue.
They're not Toronto that's panicking because on paper that team should be winning Stanley Cups and they're not.
Yeah.
This is a team that's
or a team like New York.
Exactly.
Why are we not performing?
They're
we should win.
They're young. They're following the right steps. They're taking the right amount of time. There's no rush here. And so, again, unless a Sergachev type deal comes along where it's obvious that you're going to get a player that's going to make you better right away, that fits your timeline, and you're getting it for a good price, keep the pick. And that's what I expect them to.
And we don't want to be losing someone that's not going to benefit us more, right? If we're having to trade away that 4th pick and someone who's currently on our team, who do we give up?
Right. There's not a lot of players on this roster.
Kelly's opinion is that we should never give up any
No,
players,
I love him so much. I'm a mom. I just come
I feel
in. We can't
your,
leave him.
Your KSL segment really explained this pretty well, that we got the 4th overall pick without any of the pain of having to get the 4th overall pick.
Right.
None of the organization didn't feel the financial pain of having to get the fourth overall pick, where people aren't showing up to games and you suck so bad that everyone hates you and you're the laughing stock of the NHL, like a lot of franchises that I could name and I would love to name and have in the past. But we were basically just gifted. You saw it on Bill Armstrong's face when
his cute little
he was just
shocked face.
What?
For us to jump more than 10 spots, it's just unreal.
It does not happen. And like you were saying a couple weeks ago, we're not going to have the opportunity
to do that
in what should happen,
right?
Just based off of how well the prospect pool is looking and how good the team looked last year. We're not going to pick in the top 4 again.
Yeah.
For hopefully
8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
People are trade it away, get rid of it. And it's you got to realize how difficult that process is.
Yeah.
And also you got to value this pick more. There's not a Nathan McKinnon, there's not a Sidney Crosby, there's not a Connor McDavid in this draft, but there's really good players.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have to think there was also not a Kirill Kaprizov level player in the 4th round,
right?
Yeah.
In his draft, and there he was,
right?
And you're not pulling players like that all the time, but you just don't know what these players can develop into, and especially when you're picking in the top 4, you have to expect that guy to develop.
Yeah, what I've been told is that the player they are expecting to get a player that is similar to the, not necessarily in terms of their individual skills, but skill and abilities of a Gunther or a Cooley.
Yeah.
You don't trade that away.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You don't, because there's so much more that has to go into trading that and giving up more assets and shifting what you're building. Whereas if you just make the pick, you get a great player. And
like we said, for cheap.
Yeah. Is this player going to be ready right away? Probably not. Maybe.
Yeah.
But just look at the roster the way that it is, there's not a lot of room to like add a young 17-year-old right away.
We already have some in the pocket that we're excited about coming up. Like we have a lot of prospects, so we're already feeling kind of set.
Right.
We do have like one of the youngest teams here, and it's important to recognize that is a benefit in itself.
Right. So that's all I really wanted to jump on today. We'll do more prospect breakdowns of each of these guys, but just start looking more at the draft. Start looking at guys like Porter Martone and James Higgins and Caleb Denours and Anton Frondell. Like, these are players that very well could be selected by Utah, and this organization would be ecstatic to get one of those guys, to add them to their prospect pool and to see what they can do. Maybe they come into development camp and they come into training camp and they wow everyone, and it's like, we got to have this guy right now.
Right.
Yeah. But even if expecting that doesn't happen, these guys are going to go and develop a little bit more, and they could be guys that help this team win a Stanley Cup.
Right.
Yeah. That's what they're hoping to get with the 4th pick, is a guy that's going to help them win a Stanley Cup.
Can we talk about what a good restaurant Porter Martone is? Doesn't it sound like a really good restaurant?
It does.
Did you guys go to Porter Martone last week? It was bopping.
Some high-end Italian restaurant.
I don't know. It just sounds
Porter
fancy.
Martone's.
Did you guys go to Porter Martone?
Sounds
ravioli.
nice. Also, some history in the state with
Hit
guys
us up.
named Porter.
Yeah.
Some violent history with some good guys in the state.
I like Porter Martone.
That's the argument for the Outlaws that you're making right now.
That's probably true.
I think it's cool.
Are
you kidding me? If they draft Porter Martone, people are going to love him just because his name's Porter.
I know.
And they should love him because he is a phenomenal individual with incredible offensive skill set. And there are some comparisons being made to both Tkachuk brothers.
Some of those stats.
I like
some
that.
of those highlights from Porter Martone, I was like...
And I like Caleb Denours.
He's big, too.
He's big, dude.
Yeah.
He just had 30 points in I'm trying to remember what playoffs.
Oh, I can look for you.
I don't know. It's one of the junior leagues.
Yeah.
30 points. And I was looking up, history of types of players that had 30 points in those playoffs. Sidney Crosby.
Yep.
And Nathan McKinnon. That's not bad.
Be okay with that.
Bad company.
Ones.
Yeah. But whoever they pick is going to be fantastic. But moral of the story, expect them to make the pick.
I appreciate your perspective on that, because I do think the internets are abuzz with who are we trading away and what will we get for our number 4, thinking like we're saying that it's an iconic pick that we can give away, but
it can always
you're
change.
Right, it's actually more valuable.
Yeah,
it can always change. They could trade it.
They could offer us somebody that they are just annoyed with as an organization and we don't know about.
Right. But I just think the odds are greater that they're going to keep it and they're going to select a great player.
Yeah. And if I could, I guess, leave us with this thought, as a fan, it's fun to like dream and to think about all the things that could happen. It's fun, but it's stressful. It's so much easier as a fan to just be like, what do they have? Expect them to do exactly that.
Yeah.
But remember how you felt when we made the Sergeyev trade. No one had that on their radar.
Yeah.
It just happened, and we were all so stoked about it. So it's just easier as a fan to look at the prospects and get excited about who's coming, who's young and gonna come into the organization, rather than being like, "Oh, could we get Tage Thompson? Could we get this? Could we get this? Could we get this?" Like maybe, but a lot easier to just expect good GMs to do.
I was just about to say, in GMBA we trust.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Putting all the
good note to finish on.
All the chips there.
In Bill we trust.
Thank you for tuning in to the Utah Hockey Podcast. Shout out to the fans who have been here all along the way, and we're so happy to be welcoming some new people along the way. We will be coming at you with all the things. Hit us up on the socials.
And also, you're welcome for getting Cole Bagley onto the podcast.
Oh, gosh, we're cool. Gosh, we're cool. Have an amazing week, and we'll see you soon. Love ya.
We will.